Okay, part two, we're going to start to do the triangles. I just realized that though in part one, I didn't really finish his lightning bolt, so I could go through and decide to do that if I wanted to, but I'm going to kind of leave that one for right now. Okay, so let's say we've done our outlines. Now, I'm going to stress that the outlines are not to be, they're not part of our stroke, they're just a guide in this portrait. So I'm going to lock them, and I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to name that polygons. This is where we're actually going to do our tracing. So I'm going to choose another color that's not really present in my picture, that's going to be hopefully easy to see. So I'm going to grab just a bright blue. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to start tracing. Grab my pen. So I've locked my outline layers, so when I roll over, nothing's going to be selecting, or I'm not having to worry about using the anchor points there. They're just for a guide. Excuse me. So I know that I want to keep these lines for his anatomy, so I'm going to do this and this. Join it up. Hold shift. Hold shift. Remember, I'm closing every single shape. Oops. Okay, so if I hid both of those, you'd start to see that you have some closed shapes happening. I said it before, the more detailed you are in this process, you might find it maybe a bit more rewarding. So I might have to do, say, something like this to get a few more triangles in there if I wanted it to be a bit more detailed. Okay, starting to really pay attention here to the folds of the face, the angles of the face. Okay, if you wanted to go in and break up some of these areas, you can. Like if I'm finding that this isn't detailed enough, the best places to do it are areas like this, where you have joins that, like if you see where before I did that, it's almost like a T intersection. Those are going to look a little unnatural, so I would go through anywhere you have a T intersection and do another shape. Oops. Oh, there we go. Yep. Eyelashes. might be pretty detailed on. Now the fact that I've got a tail and I have no idea why, I can see that there's a bunch of things. Like, remember how I said the red flag is if you hit the escape key, you know you're doing something wrong. So I'm going to back up. This guy does not look complete. Nope. Okay. If you don't have a complete triangle, you're gonna feel it in the end, shall we say. Okay, so here's another example of, say, like a T intersection. So I'm just gonna do another triangle there, and that fixes that. Okay, so I would go through doing this to all of Bowie, but once I've got a chunk done, I could go through and start to color it if my triangles were small enough. These guys I might go through and still continue to break up, potentially, just because I think they might be a bit big. But once you're kind of content with the size of triangles, go through and start coloring. So what you need to do is select the triangle, any triangle, using either one of your arrows, and then hit I on your keyboard or grab your eyedropper tool and click in the center. And then it's automatically going to color it. So if I hold A, click A on my keyboard, that's my keyboard shortcut for my direct selection arrow. I can click on the triangle, eyedropper, A, I, A, I, A, I, and so on and so on. Now this happens because this triangle is technically over top, because remember how this was a T intersection? So I might want to do this one first so I can get the color underneath. This is the advantage to making sure you're doing all of the individual triangles. Now, of course, you can take some creative liberties with some of the colors. If you're finding, oh, I might not have a triangle in there. Yep, I don't, so I'll have to color that one. Or sorry, trace that one. Obviously, you're going to find that that happens. You're going to be missing a bunch of triangles. So here we've got a double triangle again, so I'm going to do this one first. Okay, so this is leading me to believe that there is actually a triangle there because I can see the stroke. Here, I can't see the stroke. So if I zoom in, and go down. Oh, actually, I'm going to finish coloring and then I'll be able to see it. Don't worry too much about those until the end. Okay, so you can kind of start to see, I'm going to deselect. You can kind of start to see it take shape. Oops, there we go. Okay, I can also see here that I gapped on this guy. So we can see that a couple of the points aren't necessarily joining up. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could start to do snap to point. And then this is going to start to snap. Oops, snap your points together. A little bit easier. You can feel it snap. Yeah. Okay, so that's another way to close those guys. Okay, so ultimately that's how you're going to keep going through your portrait. Any gaps, just manipulate points as well as retracing those individual shapes, and away you go.